welcome to Gallagher Premiership Tonight. We're at a quiet Welford Road. It's quiet. Well, it was quiet during the game as well. A game which saw Bath win comfortably against Leicester Tigers. Ben Kay, Austin Healy join me as well. Later on in the show, we're going to be hearing from Jimmy Gopperth. We're going to be hearing from Dan Norton. We're going to be looking back at 25 years of professionalism when Bath play Northampton Saints on Wednesday. It'll be 25 years since the game went open, so we want your comments on what you think has changed for the better or for the worse, and maybe who you think is the player who epitomises the transfer from the amateur game to the professional game better. Get in contact with us, hashtag GP Tonight. Ben, Oz, a very, very packed, a very hurried 2 days of Gallagher Premiership action before we head into a packed few weeks with the games coming thick and fast. Which are the teams that continue to impress? Your result of the weekend, Ben?
Look, I think it's very easy just to look at the top of the table, but Exeter going up to Sale. Sale been stung the week before by their poor performance at Harlequins, and you know, Sale have that magnificent squad we've all been raving about, thinking that they're going to kick on, and you know, to play Exeter and Exeter to win so comfortably up there was probably, you know, they still look like the team that everyone has to beat.
Yeah, they look ominously strong. Oz, for you, who's catching your eye? Obviously Exeter Chiefs. Who's nestling in behind them?
I think Wasps and Bristol. I think the four sides that won this weekend with really good performances. We've spoken about the Chiefs. Bath today I thought were very good, very powerful, albeit they've only played London Irish, no disrespect, and a young Leicester team, again, no disrespect, but they battered both of them. And then Bristol looked very strong in a game that, you know, could have gone the other way for them. So I'd say the favourites at the minute, Steve Diamond will be very concerned because they can't find any form, they can't find any points. But those four, Exeter, Bath, Wasps and Bristol, look like they could just be the top four now.
Yeah, they look very strong, don't they? We obviously want you to get in contact with us here, hashtag GP Tonight. We've got some tweets coming in. This is from @RugbyAP. What was interesting to see yesterday from Exeter, but also from Wasps, the use of the tap and go from 5 metres out instead of the line-out scrum. Watching Gloucester at Sale butcher so many 5-metre line-outs made me think the old-fashioned tap and go may make a comeback.
I think it will anyway, because the referees are penalising the breakdown a lot quicker. They're not saying to the players, roll out the way. They're just giving the penalty straight away, which means the defensive line aren't as set. And I said to Ben Youngs before the game today, actually, I said, that was your USP when you first broke into the side. We could well see nines tapping and going because they're getting quicker penalties with a disrupted field in front of them. But also 5 metres out, when you look Cowan-Dickey, it doesn't seem to be too difficult to just, well, I'll just take on the world and score a try.
Yeah, and hopefully not throw up at the same time. One thing I'd love to see come back is the crazy organised tap penalty.
Oh, the wall.
The wall.
I used to love the wall. Why did we ever do that back in those early days?
Always be someone
25 years ago.
By it. You'd be like, you're the guy who's going to get mullered because you've got to players putting their hands up their jerseys. I've got the ball. Ooh, where could it be? But let's move on to
just like that.
Just like that. Let's move on to Jay Lyle, 93. Semi Radradra is decimating Gloucester, blasting through tackles, slaloming around the paddock, flicking gorgeous backdoor offloads. He's playing touch with his mates. As you mentioned, how impressive Bristol look. Last weekend we saw it for the first time. It poured down. Hasn't taken long to find his stride, has it?
Yeah, they've got some terrible players in that back line, haven't they? With Pietau in the back line as well. I mean, there's just such in the front line of those top four sides, the first choices, there is some amazing talent. The question for all these clubs is going to be is what sits just below them? Is that enough to carry them with enough points into the knockout stages? And then what happens in the knockout stages? I was thinking about Bristol and whether they could go all the way. And it's undoubted they could go all the way. But probably the ultimate question isn't about the Pietaus and the Radradra of these worlds. It's about those halfbacks. You know, the young halfbacks where you've got Randall and you've got Sheedy. Those guys link the presence of the forwards and the ability of the guys outside them. So they're probably more important than those massive names when it comes to the knockout stages, and that could be probably the deciding factor of whether Bristol end up winning this thing.
Yeah, but it's useful having Radradra.
Yeah, I mean, you'd want him rather than not having him. Yeah,
he's all right. We've got one more tweet. This is from R. Reese Rugby. Thanks for getting in contact with us. Rugby is showing its true value since returning. The respect for kickers is fantastic. It is very quiet when they kick.
I have loved the fact that Premiership Rugby has still told all the clubs to put respect the kicker on the scoreboard, so that all the thousands of people in the stand stay quiet. But yeah, it's been very well.
Yeah, they are doing it. It's superb. And
Beautiful silence.
The game announcers as well. They're still doing it as well. They're telling us who scored. Well, let's have a look at some of the other things we're talking about and that have been happening over the week. First up, and this is very, very sad, Jack Clifford, former England and Harlequins back row, he's had to announce his retirement. His body is just battered. It will not recover. Ben, it is tragic when you see a player, particularly a young player who had so much to achieve in the game, having to hang up his boots. We feel for him.
Yeah, it is, and obviously over the last couple of seasons we haven't seen as much as we would have liked, and that was the time when he really would have kicked on, and you only have to see the sort of outpouring from Harlequins players about not only what a great player he was and doing things in training that no one else could do, but also what a great bloke he was and what a leader for the team he was. So it's going to leave a massive hole at the stoop, and when you're that sort of personality that everyone speaks so highly of you, I'm sure he'll do great things in whatever he goes into next.
And also it's easy to forget that now when we look at the abundance of riches in the England back row, that when Eddie Jones first stepped into the role of coach, Jack Clifford was his man, and the cupboard was pretty bare. Jack Clifford was the very best.
Yeah, absolutely, and there's been quite a few of those guys sort of finishing at 27, 28, the Tom Reeses of this world, the Sevens, and it makes you think actually, and I'm not saying this is correlated in any way, but these guys have been stars since they were like 17 or 18, so they've had 10 years of absolute battering by the time they almost hit, before they hit their peak. You know, arguably 27, 28 should really be your peak age for a back row around that time. I know everyone's different, but makes you think some of these guys that have started later almost seem a little bit more durable because they haven't been absolutely battered 17, 18, 19. So hopefully there's a lesson there, or maybe something that someone can do some research on with some of the other back rowers, particularly in the back row.
It opens the door and sheds a bit of light then on why Premiership Rugby is looking to limit the number of games that players can play, Ben, through this crazy congested end of the season. Craig Doyle and the guys went through it yesterday before their game, but basically they can't play more than 180 minutes. There's limits on games. Is that the right approach, do you think?
I mean, Austin made the point in commentary that the coaches know the players the best, and they do. And I think a little bit of all this being released is to prove that, you know, the coaches have got together. Obviously, they're involved in the decision making with Premiership Rugby, and to say to the public, look, we are thinking about players' welfare as much as possible in unprecedented times where it's almost impossible to completely look after a player's welfare and play the games. The likes of Jack Clifford retiring, every time we get a youngish player or a big name retiring too young, we talk about, well, is the game too hard? But it's been happening since, you know, old men like us were playing, that you'd get players that unfortunately would get an injury that would finish their career young. You know, the likes of Harry Ellis, who took over from Austin, and there's a long list of players, Reese as well, that Austin was talking about. I think it's right that we have a limit on the players, just so that the temptation when you get into a run of games is that, well, maybe we'll just leave them on 5 minutes longer than we would have done. It's there for everyone to see in black and white, but I don't think it's as big a deal as everyone's making out.
Austin, let's have a look at a graphic which explains how congested this end of the season is going to be. Next week we have the first of our midweek games, and you can see here there's the first block of matches, 14th and 15th of August. Then your regular rest periods, 5, 6, tight for Wasps, 4 days. Then we get into the games that follow the weekend that we've just enjoyed. 3 days rest, 4 days rest, then a game, then 3, 4, maybe 5 days rest for Wasps.
That just been on a spreadsheet course. That's very impressive.
I did not do that. Believe me, I did not do that. It would not look anything like that. Some person we lock away in a room has done that beautifully for us. But also, there's a lot of pressure there. A lot of pressure on squads, on players, on teams. One thing that I was interested in, there's a focus on players' mental welfare as well. Can they cope with the pressure, not just physically, but mentally as well?
It's a really difficult question to answer that, Base, because part of you thinks back and think, hold on a sec, I remember when we played a big chunk of games back to back and I absolutely loved it. I know it was physically demanding, but I absolutely love the fact that Wednesday we ran out, we were tired, and it was almost a battle of the wits. Are we more prepared to go that extra mile, even though they're tired, we're tired, but we'll go a little bit further than they will and we'll get a win? And the old player wants to say, get on with it, lads, that's what you get paid for, you're tough, you should get on with this and do it. But in the modern world and how difficult it is and how big these contacts are, you have to balance that out. So I don't think there's a right answer. All I would say is that from here to winning the title is 10 weeks away. There's only 9 games. Now, if someone offered me that on a plate and they said, here's a trophy, I'd play 3 games in a week if they wanted me to, if it meant the trophy at the end of that.
Yeah,
No problem at all.
I suppose the good thing is there's
some breaks.
There are some breaks in there, and there's a fabric put in place.
It's next season it'll catch up on them, I think, rather than this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Very tight. Interesting that there will be no pre-season friendlies. Thank goodness for that. These kind of are the pre-season friendlies. Well, listen, let's talk to a man who I'm sure loves it when the game is going well, would play every possible game that would be thrown in front of him. Jimmy Gopperth joins us, currently, of course, with Wasps and enjoying life as Wasps. Sort of rediscovered their mojo. Jimmy, thanks so much for joining us. Another big win for Wasps. You guys are on a roll.
Yeah, it's been a brilliant start. I think the biggest thing, Lee and the coaching staff talked about, we're going to use 37, 38 guys in the first 2 games, and it just shows that, our squad's really strong together. We can put anyone out there. A few guys made their debut, so it keeps the squad alive and everyone's fighting for position. So it's been a dream start, to be honest.
What was the reaction to yesterday's win? It seemed comfortable in the end, but hard work, I guess.
Yeah, it was a bit of a tough one. We made an awesome start. First 10 minutes, we were on fire. Then got a try disallowed and sort of just sapped the energy a little bit. But the way we came back at it, the last 20 minutes, it was just awesome. And to finish in bonus point, the boys did really, really well.
Jimmy, just give us an insight into the change of emotions, because people now look at Wasps, where you stand in the league, the results that have come your way, thinking, well, everything is fine now, but back at the Rico. But there was quite a lot of heartache at Wasps earlier in the season, the departure of Dai Young, results not going your way. How tough was that, and how have you been able to overcome it?
Yeah, look, the start of the season, it didn't go the way we sort of planned, but, even when Dai was here over Christmas period, the times, our structures and our philosophy, it was just building. We were nearly there on some of the games we lost, and we knew it was coming. And I suppose, when Lee took over and when all that stuff sort of happened, it can either go one way. It can galvanise the team, or you can sort of completely fall off the table. But we just talked about, and Lee's been brilliant. He just talks about enjoyment and being positive and having big energy. And I suppose when we go out and we enjoy ourselves, we play our best rugby, and we're showing that today.
One player who's really catching the eye now, of course, is young Jacob Umaga. I've got to be very careful how I word this, but you're kind of being viewed now as his mentor. I don't know whether that means that you're old, but certainly Jacob Umaga is impressing. How good is this boy?
Yeah, he's brilliant. He's a good young kid, and I just showed last night when he came on, it looked like he was just playing touch in the backyard with his mates, and that's how he plays the game. He's got no fear. He's very relaxed, but that shows he's got a lot of time on the ball. And when you see players that have a lot of time on the ball, they've got something about them, and he's always willing to learn. He's always putting the extra hard yards in, and just been very impressive how quickly he's adapted to being on the big stage.
We just saw a tweet come up on the screen there from Ben Velicott. Obviously, he would have wanted to play a bit earlier, but he got injured. You had your injury as well, which probably broke up the link that Dai Young would have wanted to see between you and Lima Sopoaga. How disruptive was all of that?
Yeah, look, I suppose it's hard for different guys coming in, and it was awesome to see Benny Velicott back out there. He had a tough year signing for us and doing his knee in the sevens, and he's been tearing shreds in training, so it was actually nice to see some other guys getting stepped instead of myself. So that was really good. But we're starting to get some combinations together, and it's showing on the field that we can actually put anyone with anyone, and everyone sort of knows the way we want to play.
Jimmy, we've just been talking about the number of games that are coming up over the coming weeks, and how do you feel if you were asked to play 3 games in a week? How long do you think your body could cope with it? Is it something you would excite you, or something that would be a little bit too much to take at your age, our age?
It's a dream, mate. You just play, you do captain's run, and you play again. No training. It's an absolute dream.
How different is the training, and how easy is it for the team, it's almost you're playing like a midweek side and then a Saturday side. How difficult is it to flip between and keep that cohesion? Because usually you'd have a B team to train against.
Yeah, look, it is challenging, and I think Lee and the coaching staff have done really well on that. This week, it was sort of, we knew who was playing, and the guys that were getting rested, we still had to prepare them as much as we can for the Worcester game, but also prepare ourselves for the Sale game coming up. So it was a little bit hard. Like today, the boys are back into training. We trained this morning. The guys who played last night had to back up and do a few walkthroughs, and then they got the day off. But little things like that, we just have to be so adaptable because we could be playing in 4 days.
What about this game against Sale? What are you expecting from them, and what do you have to do to counter a team which I guess is hurting at the moment and desperate to bounce back?
Yeah, look, there's been a lot of talk about them, and they haven't had the greatest start, but I think they're probably the most physical side in the Premiership. So we know what's coming. We know they're going to be very physical. I think they showed against Exeter their first try, just manu up the middle, round the corner really fast, just trying to beat you around the corner. So we know what's coming, and they're going to be hurting. They were in the top four, and they're still there, and they're fighting. And we're just looking. I suppose we're just worrying about ourselves at the moment. That's all you can do with these short turnarounds. You can't you respect your opposition, but you just got to worry about yourselves and go out and put your best foot forward.
Great stuff. Well, Wasps were certainly doing that. Jimmy, thanks so much for joining us. We'll let you relax and enjoy a rare Sunday off. Good luck next weekend. Thanks for joining us here on Gallagher Premiership Tonight. For everyone else, we can take a quick breather after the break. We're going to be discussing professionalism. 25 years since the game went open. No one ever said it went professional, just open. That's very much the rugby way. What's good, what's bad? Let us know your views. #GP Tonight. We'll see you in a few minutes. Welcome back to Gallagher Premiership Tonight. Let's just take a breather and let you know what is coming up for you over the next few days. It's our first round of midweek matches in the Gallagher Premiership. Round 16 kicks off on Tuesday. Wasps taking on Sale. Wasps very much on the rise. Sale struggling to get any sort of momentum going. That's Tuesday at 5:15 on BT Sport 2 and Ultimate. And then what a cracker. Bristol against Exeter. A huge West Country derby, but a real tussle between the two powerhouses of the Premiership at the moment. That's at 7:30. Then 4 games on Wednesday. Leicester against London Irish, Saracens against Gloucester, and Worcester against Harlequins. Northampton against Bath wraps things up at 7:30 from Franklin's Gardens. And that game, that day, signals 25 years since rugby went professional. Let us know what you feel about that. Is it good? Is it bad? What have you seen about the game that has worked well? That you can tweet us on #GP Tonight. We got a few tweets from @the_Colwood. Leicester team selection today with an eye on Europe is one of the main reasons I don't agree with ring fencing. Taking the threat of relegation away leads to teams having nothing to play for and resting entire first team like the Pro 14. Ben, we understand the reasons why Steve Borthwick and Jordan Murphy have done it, but this is one of the eternal arguments about ring fencing or not ring fencing.
But it's also, very strange circumstances at the moment that everyone's going to have to rest their players because of the number of games and put their second team out on occasions. So I don't think it's necessarily relevant to the ring fencing argument, but I do agree, that you do want to make sure that at the end of the season games are competitive, and it's something that Premiership Rugby are going to have to weigh up if they go down that route. But equally, hopefully we'll see a lot more English talent coming through because coaches are willing to play players that wouldn't get a go otherwise if there's no threat of a relegation.
Absolutely. A few more tweets. This is from @Westlake Kevin. The commentary from I am Austin Healy and Ben K5 on BT Sport Rugby has been more entertaining than Bath versus Leicester. #Dobby and #The Dementor. Well done, gentlemen. Todd Bristol Bear. If Randrandra and Piotr stay fit, are Bristol now favourites? Very quickly, would they be favourites?
No, not the favourites. I think there's two other sides I pick before them currently.
There's one thing, I've obviously mentioned that Exeter are the team to beat. There's one thing that we haven't said is that Exeter are obviously still gunning in Europe, and trying to fit those games into this and stay at the top of the table is going to be very difficult.
Ross, who would your other favourite be?
I think Wasps actually at the minute. I think the way they're playing, the energy that they've got, the players, the quality. Only front line, if they take 4 or 5 key injuries, like anyone really, then they'll drop down quite quickly.
Okay, Graham Morley, he's tweeted us, great at rugby this afternoon, it's tough for a young side, but you have to have a chance. Well done, Leicester. On another point, why is Austin dressed as an 80s pop star?
Which one?
Well, Andrew Ridgely's always been a big favourite of mine. Hold on a sec, what are you doing? Put that camera back up. You're not allowed to see the feet.
Okay, well, we won't go quite back to the 80s, but let's go back to 1995. Rugby goes professional following the World Cup in South Africa. We all knew it was going to come. There have been some huge changes. Let's remind ourselves of, if we have to, do we have to do this at the league table in 95? Oh, look who's at bottom, Northampton. Yes, we got relegated out of the first division then. That was the English top division in 94-95. Some familiar names, where Oregon, where West Hartlepool as well. Let's have a look at the teams that have been relegated out of the Premiership and then back in as well. There are some names that have bounced down and come back. Obviously, Bristol, Exeter are there. They never got relegated, of course. They came straight in. Harlequins, London Irish, Newcastle, Northampton down. But some who went and never came back: Orrell, Richmond, Rotherham, West Hartlepool, Yorkshire Carnegie.
Isn't that just a list of the teams that you played for, Babe?
Well, it is true, Austin. It is true that every team I play for has been relegated. I'm kind of like an albatross around a club's neck. But at least with Saints, we bounced back.
Yeah, I was delighted to see that.
Yes, of course you were. What about, I mean, obviously that was my time, 94-95, when the game went professional. It was a very, very odd time. No one quite knew what happened. Austin, would you have just experienced that changeover?
Yeah, absolutely. I played for Waterloo in 92 and 93, Orrell in 94, 95, and then came here in 96. So absolutely went through that. Everybody was sort of wondering, particularly the younger guys like myself, was this going to be your career? Did you have to go off and do whatever you were going to do, join the RAF, be an accountant, be a lawyer, whatever you were going to do, a bricklayer, or in my case, rob cars? You didn't really know what was around the corner. And then 95, it became apparent, I think, when the World Cup Sevens were on. I think there was some kind of announcement prior to the actual World Cup then that it was going to happen. I remember being at university and thinking, right, I've got one more year of university, and then I'm either going to play for Orrell and be taxed as opposed to just claiming expenses, and then end up playing professional rugby, and I never knew I'd end up down here.
Expenses were great, were they? You come here from Midlands train station. I didn't realise it was 163 miles from Leicester Tigers to Bedford. It's an astonishing distance. Ben, for you, what were the experiences?
Look, I was sort of fresh out of school and uni, and sort of had a period as a part-time player. But I think it was just that particularly coming here and going full-time professional here, it was the step up in workload and the training. And the first pre-season I arrived here was a World Cup was on, all the stars were away, so Dean and Wellesley had no one to say, hang on, you're pushing us a bit hard here, and we got absolutely flogged. I remember thinking, what have I done? But Martin Johnson, actually, I remember speaking to him about when the game went professional. He said, because a lot of the guys did have jobs that they weren't prepared to give up, when all the guys that went professional fully, there were only sort of a few of them, handful of them, and so they'd be sitting around the training ground going, great, we're professional, what do we do now? Waiting for everyone to turn up on Thursday evening, train as usual. So there was that period that it took to get fully professional.
It was a massive step change, because I signed for Leicester Tigers, a very elaborate signing on ceremony at the Leicester Forest East service station in the Little Chef.
I remember it well.
It was amazing.
What did you have?
Early starter, 2 sausage, lovely.
Olympic breakfast.
Olympic breakfast. But signed there, and then me and Lou were buying a house, our first house together, and we decided we were going to buy up near Sheffield by her family. So we were looking around, and then it came to a meeting here at the ground in the old clubhouse that was here. Bob Dwyer stood up and said, guys, we're going to be in every morning at 9 o'clock, 6 days a week. And players were literally looking around at each other going, he's mad. he's gone absolutely mad. So he ended up not living up there, but moving into Leicester. It was a proper job.
House prices collapsed.
Yeah, yes, collapsed. The people of Sheffield were so relieved that it happened. I mean, I remember when it happened, I found it incredibly boring. Having given up my job as a police officer, I found professional rugby very, very boring. But
And slightly less violent.
Maybe more.
Couldn't pepper spray people anymore.
Couldn't have. Yeah, where's a student when you need one? That sounds weird. You know what I mean. Austin, very quickly, moving on to a serious point. Did the RFU miss a trick? Because they imposed this moratorium. They said, we'll give it a year for everyone to get their house in order. And when everyone did, they realised, hang on, all the clubs have signed the players. Did they miss a trick?
Well, they let Rob Andrew loose, didn't they? And he effectively went up to Newcastle and ended up signing everyone, and that was the end of the RFU's chances to pretty much hoover up all the talent and then distribute them out to the clubs in a franchise model. And probably the answer is yes. What was his name? Rutherford? Don Rutherford?
Yeah.
I think he had the opportunity, and he'd started to do the rounds and go and speak to players, some of the top players, the likes of Dean Richards of the world and the Underwoods. But Rob got there first, and he basically enticed everyone up there with the Geordie pound.
Ben, do you think if it hadn't been for the pandemic we're now experiencing, the RFU would be looking at trying to right that wrong and roll back the time and get players on central contracts?
There was a time where the clubs were obviously struggling. Even before the pandemic, the clubs weren't flush with money. They were losing a lot more money, and I think there was an opportunity to maybe align things. But the RFU had obviously made a lot of amendments to Twickenham, built the new hospitality facility in the East Stand, and we're trying to pay for that. So I think they were always struggling a little bit to have the funds to do it. But definitely, I think they've almost missed their chance now, and it was something that they should have done.
Yeah, let's have a look at some of the tweets that you've been sending in. Thanks very much for that. At Craigie1, proper rucking. The contest led to more space across the pitch. Players ran into rather than at each other. This is what you miss. Proper rucking, yeah?
I loved it, especially when he got trapped at the
I was on his team.
you're
as
on
well.
my side. Yeah, go on, get out of the way.
This is from Sam Bagel. Oh yeah, Sam Bagel Art. Yes, going on a supporters tour and bumping into the midweek side in every single bar. Did that ever happen?
No, I was training.
And the important thing there was that the physios were always there, because they'd be with the midweek team and then think, okay, we've supported them, and then the weekend team, yeah, we'll be with them during the midweek as well. Excellent, we like that. Nee Howell 176. Old proper rugby grounds, open terraces. Oh, this is jumpers for goalposts moment. I mean, let's take Welford Road, Ben. We look at this, and with as much room as they're able to, they've done a phenomenal job. But there was something about the old place that was hugely evocative.
You know, one of the problems when you put a load more seats in is that the supply is obviously a lot more. When I first joined, 16,000 could come in here. It was rammed every single week because people were desperate to get that. Now you'll get 20,000 here as an average, but actually when I first joined here they were getting 9,000 for the 18 games because people were desperate to come and watch the rugby. So there was something about this place when it was
just really quick amateur story. We went on tour with Oral to California, and we played ONBAC, which is the big team in America. We arrived at an Aztec stadium. There wasn't any posts at either end, right, and there wasn't any lines on the pitch, and we played a game in the stadium.
Beautiful. I love all that. This is on which player personifies the transition of amateur into professional. Meekin Jim puts Jason Leonard, top chippy from barking to the ultimate professional, one of the great ambassadors
the one
of England.
The one that changed it for me was Vainga to coming back to rugby union from rugby league that had pinched him, because that was where rugby were losing their best talent to rugby league. So to see them start coming back was great.
Yeah, Monsieur Jones says that, Vainga Twigmile, a wrecking ball superstar playing against Lions in '93. Just